Who's that waifu? It's Margarita! I think it's best we start with one simple question. What is Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission? Super Dragon Ball Heroes is predominantly known as being a Japanese exclusive arcade game that uses real physical cards on a proprietary hardware and touchscreen interface. It is a card game first and foremost, which is confusing a lot of people potentially interested in a new game with Dragon Ball in the title. There have been a lot of comments floating around about this game not being worth full price, mainly due to the graphics because it apparently looks like a PS2 game, which, while having an air of truth, isn't entirely accurate. It actually has arcade graphics. It's incredibly faithful to the arcade game. World Mission in general is very faithful to the arcade game. I completely reject the notion that this game isn't worth $60 when it has, quite literally, years worth of content in it. No hyperbole, World Mission has years and years worth of content from the arcade game and is many iterations that people in Japan have spent a hell of a lot more than $60 on over the years. It also has a whole heap of additional content that's brand new and fresh for this Switch and PC release. A distinction needs to be made between a game that isn't worth full price and a game that just isn't for you. The problem is most people see Dragon Ball and assume that Super Dragon Ball Heroes is something that it's not. This is a card game, and a rather niche card game at that. It just happens to take place in a Dragon Ball universe chock full of fan service, and by fan service I mean it is full to the brim with Dragon Ball references, Dragon Ball interactions and situations that never existed, and Dragon Ball characters reaching power levels and transformations they never did in the various anime shows, movies and manga. I won't go into great detail on how the game is played. The tutorial does a great job of teaching you the basics before giving you the freedom to experiment. But there are a few things I want to talk about to give you an idea of the scope of the game. First of all, unlike many card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or the Pokemon TCG, you don't have a big deck that you draw cards from. Decks are just 7 cards, and all 7 of them are active on the field. Secondly, you'll be selecting a deck of 7 cards from over 1100 different cards included in World Mission. That means that the number of different decks you can make is in the region of 511,921,338,373,134,000 different decks. And also, unlike many other card games, it isn't like we discard 99% of these deck combinations in favour of a handful of meta decks. There is seemingly no cut and dry best strategy. You can make just about anything work in one way or another once you start getting more familiar with all the mechanics and paying closer attention to all the different synergies. The amount of cards and deck combinations isn't the only thing that's overflowing in the game either. There is a full story mode where you work your way through chapters and side stories set in the universe of the game, a mission mode where you play out standalone stories from the Dragon Ball universe, an ally mode which is like mission mode but utilizing side characters from the main story mode, both local and online multiplayer are included, and an incredibly broad creation mode that lets you create cards from scratch along with creating and editing your own missions which can then be uploaded for other people to play. There are also achievements and a character progression system woven into a special card simply known as You. It gets upgraded and more customizable as you continue to play. Now, if we categorize World Mission as first and foremost a card game, it would undoubtedly be an arcade game second. Once you set your cards and set up your play, you don't just sit back and watch it play out. Whether you're attacking or defending, you'll be completing simple little mini games that remind me somewhat of the battle system in Yokai Watch. Again, these are all extremely faithful to the arcade game, but areas of these lose a little of their magic. On the arcade version, you place real cards on a screen interface that reads their info and location, and to perform a big special move, you'll have to move the card around on the screen to draw a shape or follow a pattern. On the Switch, you'll do the same actions, but you're using your finger on the touchscreen, or you can simply use the thumbsticks to move the cards in the game. Being faithful to the arcade does come with a few blemishes though. Obviously, the original sound design was envisioned to be used on an arcade cabinet in a noisy arcade. Not everything translates to a pleasant listening experience on the Switch. Not all of it is bad, some of the tracks are actually really good and there is a huge variety here again, but sound effects in particular can be a little grating on their default setting. Also, keep in mind that the voice acting is Japanese only. Not normally a big deal for Japanese games, but I know a lot of people that grew up with the localized Dragon Ball Z that might find it a little jarring. Who's that waifu? It's Caulifla! Super Dragon Ball Heroes World Mission is a huge game. The right person could get literal years of entertainment out of it, but therein lies the problem. Are you the right person for this game? You have to look at what it actually is. It's a card game first, an arcade game second, and then it's a Dragon Ball game. I am a fan of card games like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Hearthstone, so World Mission simply clicked with me right away. It's unlike many other card games and it feels fresh for the genre, despite being somewhere around a decade old in Japan. If you like card games, or to a lesser extent strategy games, you're probably going to like this, especially if the Dragon Ball characters are appealing to you. Assuming you're the target for this game, I wholeheartedly recommend it.
Dragon Ball, Dragon, rock the dragon,